So right now, all eyes are on the White House. The country doesn't need a victory lap. It needs leadership. It's time for the president, congressional Democrats, to tell the American people what spending cuts they're really willing to make.
Republicans have argued that tax hikes alone will not get the job done, and here's why. Raising taxes on the top 2% of earners will raise about $850 billion over the next 10 years. But federal spending over that same time period will reach nearly $44 trillion. That means government spending will be 52 times more than the new revenue, so you can see that doesn't get it done. Joining me now, Michael Ramirez, the senior editor and editorial cartoonist for Investors Business Daily. The paper today ran an editorial making this same argument. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Megan. Great to be on your show.
So, you know, it's clear that tax hikes on the rich would be teaspoons in the ocean and that we need something more. And Simpson Bowles, you know, the debt commission, they've been arguing all along. We need something more. We need spending cuts. And the Democrats are now saying, well, look to the president's last budget for spending cuts that he proposed. Now, Senator Reid never got him a vote on that budget in the Senate. But is that at least a starting point?
It really isn't. I mean, it's an unserious proposal. I mean, remember when the president promised $2.50 worth of cuts for every new dollar in revenue, and yet they're putting a budget which spends over $1.5 trillion in deficit. It's an administration that's added $5.3 trillion to the debt in the last 4 years. You know, everybody complained about the Bush administration adding $4.6 trillion in 8 years. And yet, this 2% tax is only going to bring in anywhere from $50 to maybe $82 billion a year, with deficits at $1.3 to $1.5 trillion a year. I mean, it's not a serious proposal at all. And the biggest problem, and what is being lost in this discussion, is the impact that this has on our economy. And that's really what the structure of this argument should be surrounding. What can we do to get this economy, which is the worst economic recovery since the Great Depression, to get going? What's going to get those 23.6 million people that are unemployed or underemployed or dropped out of the job market completely, jobs? And that's really the solution to our long-term problems.
That's what they argued about in the presidential campaign, about how growth is the way out. That's how, you know, they believe Ronald Reagan got us out of our mess. But the question is, you know, all right, the growth would be nice, but no one's really talking about that right now. They're talking about these spending cuts and they're talking about these tax hikes. And the Republicans, you tell me, Michael, but it seems like there's starting to be a fissure in the once united front on holding firm against these tax hikes until they got their spending cuts. I mean, Boehner today was very strong on it, but we're starting to hear a couple of Republican voices say, all right, agree to the tax reduction on the middle class and tax hikes on the rich in exchange for nothing, and we'll talk about the rest later.
You know, that's the big problem, though. They're in the untenable political position where they've lost an election in a pretty big, substantial way. And so it's a losing political argument to say, we're gonna capture or stop our progress off the fiscal cliff in exchange for these kind of tax hikes.
But is that consistent? Is that consistent with the Republicans' history? Because in your editorial, you write about President Reagan and saying the 40th president sought, quote, to protect future generations from government's desire to spend its citizens' money and then tax them into servitude when the bills come due.
Right. I mean, look, we're looking forward as to what the long-term consequences of these decisions are, whether they're politically favorable or not. The truth of the matter is what we're doing is fiscally irresponsible and unsustainable. And the only way that the only solution that we really have to our economy and our future problems is sustained economic growth. Raising taxes during this economic downturn. Remember, President Obama, just a couple of years ago, didn't want to raise taxes because he thought it would hurt the economy. Well, the economy is worse now than it was then. And frankly, if you look at the dynamic shift in demographics, our entitlements are growing at a time when our working population is decreasing. Really, the only answer to all these problems is sustained economic growth. It's the economy, stupid.
Well, that's
And
the
so we have to
interesting
figure
thing.
out-
I raised this yesterday. What if the Republicans went in and say, we agree, let's raise the taxes on the rich, take the rates back up for the top 2%, and then what would happen? Then what would they be debating about when that most likely didn't fix the problem? Quick last word.
Right. It's a terrible position for the Republicans to be in because it really is their only negotiating coin right now. And to give in without doing something to figure out these entitlement programs will be a disaster for the Republican Party.
Yeah. Michael, thanks.